I have to admit that I've been struggling for the last month, and for 3 years I purposed in my heart to submit to the Lord.
Door 4, Route 9, ready to go.
I guess you could kind of tell I'm at work. So I purposed it in my heart to humble myself before the Lord. I asked Him for a moment because, what I had been doing with my life came under judgment by the Holy Spirit in January of 2020. And I had an experience, I experienced Jesus. And, but it wasn't until December of 2020 that I heard from the Holy Spirit that I wasn't doing what I was asked to do. So, and the threat of, look, either you change or we're going to get rid of you, basically, came about. And it scared me. And so I purposed it in my heart. When the Holy Spirit was speaking to me, I said, Lord, please allow me to humble myself before you. And I did. I purposed it in my heart. For 3 solid years, I didn't touch anything. And I looked for ways, the old ways. I looked at the old ways of the Old Testament and the New Testament on what was an acceptable way to humble yourself before God, and I demonstrated all of those things. But it's a new year, right? And I started the flesh, man. I started getting like, I want things. So I got up from the position in my heart where I was like, I want to humble myself, and I got up and I was like, now I just want things. So, I haven't been doing Bible studies because I feel like I can't touch the Bible. It's gotten too real for me. The characters of the Word have started manifesting in my life, and I didn't know that they can do that because I was told that God doesn't talk to people anymore. That was Old Testament or that was New Testament, but God doesn't speak today. Well, why not? Why can't He speak? Well, who are you to tell God what He can do, right? And then it happens to you, and you realize that God's a lot closer than you thought He was. He's not like in heaven in some faraway place, disassociated with the daily happenings of everyone's lives. He's very much in the redemptive process of the war has been won. He's spilled His blood. He's risen from the grave, and He's been crowned king, and He is the governmental head of basically the new order of the world, and He's in charge. So, if He decides to step into somebody's life, that's His business. But what I realized is that He can do that. So, so this puts a fear in me. It puts a fear in my heart that He's just going to show up and I'm going to walk around the corner and bump into Him. And then He's going to be right there, So when I decided to unhumble myself and I reached out to touch things that I was told that I shouldn't touch, I became defiant in this last month. This last couple months, I've become defiant. Because I didn't think it was fair that God took these things away from me. He said not to do them. And I didn't think it was fair. I didn't see the big deal about it. But once I started touching them again, after 3 years of not touching anything, and being in that state of just normalness hit my life. I wasn't ducking the consequences or dealing with the consequences of my sin and the shame that comes with it, and all these things. I was in a state of normalcy, and I was so looking back now, I know what it feels like to be normal. It's kind of frustrating because I don't get what I want. The flesh, but the flesh doesn't get what it wants. So, there's that constant battle where, I'm, so anyway, so I went back to it. I started playing around with all the things that the Lord had said that I shouldn't touch anymore. And you know what? When I got it, yeah, there was a moment of gratification, but that was all. It was just a moment, and then the moment was gone, and then I'd have to repeat what I was doing to get that gratification again. And I just felt, it made me depressed, so depressed, and I can feel the separation between me and God, like he turned his face from me, like he would shut his ear to my prayer. Like I couldn't even talk to him. I couldn't even come to him in prayer because I was actively involved in my sin, and, so it just made me feel ugly, and revisiting all of my sin systematically, I'd be like, well, what about this? And then I go and I touch that. And what about this? And what about that? And what about that? And the Holy Spirit would be there, and then, he'd be like, no, don't touch that. Don't touch that. So, but now I see. I've come to a place where I see what the Lord's talking about. I understand why he told me that these things I shouldn't touch, because they all lead back to my sickness, the sickness that he was trying to free me from, that I was praying to be freed from, came with rules. Don't touch this. Don't touch that. Rules. And I broke the rules, and I saw how quickly, because I tried to compartmentalize. Well, what if I only touch this and I don't touch these things over here? I'll only touch this thing. So I was trying to compartmentalize. But sin doesn't work that way. Sin is progressive, and my flesh is hungry. It's like an animal. Just you feed it once, and then that's it. That's all it takes, man. Just that one thing. And so anyways, so I did it, man. I stepped out and I sinned, and I did it again, and then I tried out all the things that I wasn't supposed to touch. And what I've come to realize is that I don't actually want these things. They were things that I used to want. But now that I've seen a better way, I've come to agree with the Lord that he is right. Of course he's right, but I was doing everything that I was doing out of fear of death. Sin in its full maturity is death. So when you sin, you're courting death in a relationship. And I, am aging myself through my sin. And it's breaking me down. It would break me down if I'd let it. It would kill me if I let it. The flesh is a liar. It says that it wants these things, and then you go out and get those things, and it brings ruin to your life. So, but if I hadn't have stepped out and saw for myself why the Lord said, don't do these things, I would have still been operating out of fear, and not because I genuinely want to obey God. And I agree with him that these things are not good for my life. So there was a moment where I was like, man, Jesus is just going to walk around the corner and strike me down. The further I got into my sin, the more I felt that he was just going to strike me down. And I don't like that feeling. You know, it's not good to walk around like that in your daily life. My healthy fear of the Lord, you know, trembling before him type of fear, you know, because he's awesome and powerful and, you know, majestic, and, you know, the holy fear, the fear of you know, a terrible God, had, you know, that's good. That's good to have in your life. But fear of consequence, that's a different type of fear. The fear of getting what you deserve, really, what I deserve, you know, for my behavior. That's the fear that I transitioned into. And I didn't like that feeling. You know, I liked the healthy fear of God, but I didn't like the fear of consequence. You know, I don't like walking around like that. Because I feel like he could just step into my life. He's done it before. You know, he could just step into my life and be there, you know, and hold me accountable and fulfill his word to me that if I don't do what he says, he's going to put me under the ground. You know, that's what the Holy Spirit told me, man. You know, so this experience has radically changed my life. And I've been struggling with it up to this point because I still wanted all the things that God took away from me. But now I've kind of changed my mind. And I've come to a place where I agree with God that he is right. These things are no good. So I'm going to begin to walk in agreement with the Lord. Not walking in fear of the Lord. You know, not like not touching things because I'm afraid of him and the consequence of him. But, you know, not touching things because I agree that these things aren't good for my life. So that's the deal. That's where I'm at. And we'll see where it goes from there.